to forgive him was for me to jump. And I think up at that point, I'd only really jumped like 2 or 3 times, not a lie. And so that's why actually when I jump, there's such significance tied to it is the time of the most powerful reconciliation that I've seen displayed before me.
Hi, my name is Louise Kuman from Stories, and before I introduce you to my friend Caleb, I want to tell you that your story is so important. But do you know your story, or is it fragmented with pieces scattered here and there? I want to encourage you to get to know your story. But where to start? At Stories, we created a framework for you to gather and discover your story. So find the link in the show notes or visit our website sstories.co and look for My Story Landscape. Welcome to the first episode of our podcast, and what a privilege for me to introduce a friend whom I crisscrossed continents and covered many miles in the last 5 years. A tall, skinny black man from Kenya, Caleb Bannister. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Caleb, you are talking to us from Toronto, Canada, and I'm in Tshwane, South Africa, and I'm sure you're really missing the African weather.
You have no idea. I'm looking out my window and the ground is covered in white snow. And it's cold. So yes, I do miss the warm African sunshine and warmth.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes.
I remember the day we met so well. I was part of my team then, South Roots, and we were waiting in great anticipation to welcome Island Breeze at last on African soil. And your team flew in overnight from Germany, and you guys were jet lagged and tired, and you took the long route from Cape Town to Worcester over the mountain instead of through the tunnel.
She wanted to see the scenic route.
And then we welcomed you guys with great passion, African drums and true South Roots style. And I know you guys did not expect that.
No.
Do you remember that day?
I remember it very well. I remember it because our dear sister Alyssa was the first one to lead us in. And she got to the door, and as soon as she heard the noise, she put her hands on the door frame and wouldn't move, and she was scared. And we're like, Alyssa, you gotta go, keep going. And she's like, no, I'm scared. I'm like, okay, great. This is our first impression. But it was, for me, being Kenyan, it resonated. The moment I got in, the moment I heard the drums, I was just like, oh, this is it. Like, it was so beautiful. We sat through their protocol. Well, they welcomed us and honored us. And Luis, I don't know if you remember pretty well. Then we did a response, and I like to blame the jet lag, even though really you're in the same time zone as Germany. So I blame the travel. But when we did the response, the words didn't really come for me, so I was just mumbling. And everyone apparently still to this day on South Roots, they still like to remind me, Caleb, I remember when you did the protocol. You didn't actually know it. I'm like, yeah. So, but yeah, it was such a beautiful time.
Yeah, it was. And who knew that we would travel for so long together? Right? It was really,
Who knew
a good
that
beginning.
I would be your little brother who would annoy you at every possible opportunity? Huh?
I love it.
Yeah, you do.
Just because I don't have a brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Caleb, even though you're from Kenya, you grew up in a white Canadian missionary family. So yeah, do you want to share that story with us?
Yeah. Well, I like to say I bring the color to the family. And so as I've probably told you before, I've had to learn to adjust, whether we're taking family photos, knowing how to stand behind someone with a white shirt to stick out, or going to the beach. I don't need suntan lotion, which is always nice. So there's been growing up the different pros and cons you could look at it. But for me, I was brought up in a family that didn't see color, in the sense that I never was treated any differently because I had dark skin. And I forever am thankful and grateful for that. At 1 month old, I was left abandoned underneath a tea bush, and a lady heard me crying, and so she then took me to the police station. Where at the police station, they didn't really know what to do, and so they said they advised this lady take me to the nearby clinic. Now, this clinic, this is 1994, um, in a very little like kind of town, and so
Hmm.
this clinic was very run down, and so they put me in an incubator and basically kept me there alive but barely. And at this incubator, there was a missionary lady that would come and visit, and she saw me, so she would take me to her house. They were okay with that, and then she'd bring me back and she would give me clothes, she would feed me. She basically loved me. And then
Hmm.
through a series of events, there was this other white Canadian missionary family that was wanting to adopt a son, um, or really a child, and but I think the Lord had made it pretty clear to them that they were to have a son. But like I said, through a series of events, this lady, the missionary lady, brought me. Spoiler alert to this family, and my parents now they looked at me and they just said, "No, this is the son we're meant to have." So
Yeah.
I got fully adopted at about 6 months, with which, if you know anything with the adoption rates and stories, it is a
Yeah.
miracle.
Yeah.
How just a little over 3 months I got adopted. Um, so I grew up in this family, and I grew up at a Christian international boarding school, and so it was a great environment I had growing up. I was surrounded by a lot of friends, and quite a few of my friends were actually also adopted, and so
Hmm.
it was normal to me. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a normal thing for me to see white families with black kids. It wasn't far stretched. And so probably, and probably you'll ask me some of those questions later, but I think a lot of the first challenges started coming when I moved back to North America, and
Uh-huh.
and that, but yeah, growing up, Luis, I was blessed. I was blessed. Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And loved, I'm sure. Really loved.
absolutely.
Yeah, so share a little bit about the challenges that you faced. And like you said, it happened more when you went back to Canada. And yeah, so tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I went back to Canada. What we would do as missionaries, we would live 4 years in Kenya and then 1 year in Canada, and so
Hmm.
um, it was kind of on that rotation. But we what we did was we would go back to Canada and for a furlough. And I remember it was my kindergarten, and I think the first time when something really hit me, I was on the schoolyard, the playground, and
Yeah.
this girl was playing with me, and we were playing, and then she stopped and just kind of made a scene and was like, "Oh, you're dirty. I don't want to play with you anymore." And I remember it stopped me.
Mm.
It stopped me in my tracks, and I was just like, "I'm dirty. Like, wait, what?" And and it hurt. I mean, I remember just being very very confused in that regard, and I went home and told my parents about it. And I remember my mom and dad's response was, "Caleb, what are you going to do about it?" Now they off before that they gave me love and assurance and everything, but the end ultimate goal was, "Caleb, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it?" And I remember, I
Yeah.
think for me, the attitude I've taken in life has stemmed from this moment, because I said, "I'm going to choose to make her my friend," and
Yeah.
basically, ultimately, I'm going to forgive her. And so I went back the next day, and I went back with extra snacks in my lunchbox, because I'm like,
Oh,
I'm going to share with her. I'm going to woo my way in. You see, I was young, but I still had the charm, you know. Uh, and so I said, I'm going to charm her. No, no. I said, I'm gonna be the friend that that I want to be to her. And sure enough, she, I think, as confused as she must have been, as I think you're 6 or 7, but she saw that I gave it an effort, and she gave me another chance. But it was that situation that I really saw I have different skin color. And it
yeah.
was that situation that it it really just stuck, and I realized, like, okay, because when I would come back to Kenya, um, the majority of the people at our school were white, Um,
Yeah.
but again, growing up in a white family, it's not that I saw myself as white. I just didn't see myself as a problem, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I
Yeah.
had mentioned it to you earlier, and it came back to me now. But I think with the era and the world and civilization we're living in now, with 2020, um, what I want to think of is I saw a quote a while ago, and it said it was of a black person, and he said,
Hmm.
when did I start to look like a threat?" And it was like his baby photo. It's like, at what age does
Yeah.
does he turn into a threat? And I think I apply that to my own life, because when I was young, I was cute looking, this and that, and I was innocent. And
Yeah.
for this lady, this young girl, to think I was dirty and she had this stereotype, it really wrestled with my mind. But as
Yeah.
I've grown up, as I've traveled, as I've seen different places, I am able to say more and more and confidently, no, I mean, it's a sad reality what people like to view. Maybe we're a threat, but we're not. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it became such, like you said, such a reality in this year.
yeah.
And in this year, actually, I think people really, for the first time, heard also the other side of the story sometimes. I
Mhm,
think people before couldn't really hear sometimes.
mhm.
I don't know. It's like we sometimes so brainwashed or so accepting the world we and the environment we're in, and we don't realize, we don't see it, the story sometimes
Mm.
from all the different angles. And I think it's really powerful, especially for you, to be able to jump between the two shoes, in a sense, if you
Yeah,
can call it like that,
absolutely.
and be the voice for both sides, in a sense.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely, sorry to cut you. I definitely believe that, and I think that's that's been kind of one of my uh, callings, for lack of a better word. More
Yeah.
of a realization. I think it's when I was in Namibia, 2017, when I remember I was speaking and sharing my story at a school, and it was like in a single moment. When you're just speaking, and then like kind of in the movie, it freezes and
Yeah.
things go by you. And I had a moment like that, and it was like the moment and the reality was, you are a son of the soil here, belonging to Africa, and yet you were brought up by the white man. And then I felt like the
Yeah.
Lord actually went on to say, like, the significance is in the two worlds that you have. What's that word? Uh, Oh, you have the authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, the authority. And so it's been exactly that, Luis. Because there's been moments when I was living in Kansas City, when we were in some of the places that people would deem as dangerous and rough. I
Yeah.
would be there. I'd be at a 7-Eleven buying some stuff, and
Yeah.
I'd get this guy coming up to me. I mean, his pants are down to his ankles, typical stereotype of how people view dangerous black men. And he's up to
Yeah.
me, he's like, "What's up, bro?" I'm like, "Sweet, hey, man." He instantly knows, okay, he's not too black, how I'm speaking. Um, but
Yeah.
he instantly started. He felt comfortable with me, and he dove right in and started to speak about how he dislikes white people and da 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 da. And then it was so awesome, because I remember at that time I was able to interject and say, "Oh, actually, this is what my opinion is on white people," and I said, "This is
Yeah.
why." And I'll tell you what, I'll never forget it. His composure just changed, because I was telling him an experience and the reality of what living with white people was like for me.
Yeah.
And I know it changed him. I mean, he was just like, "Oh no," he's like, "Word, word," like, "Okay," And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
like, they're not all like this." I told him what my parents did, and so, to me, I realized in that moment as well in Kansas City, okay, maybe it's one story and it's one life, but
Yeah.
there was an impact there, and it was so beautiful.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it always has an impact on more people than
Yes,
just that person.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not only skin color, but I'm sure there must have been a day that you became also aware of cultural identity.
Mm,
And I've experienced small moments of that. But yeah, would you like to share a little bit about that journey as
yeah,
well?
yeah. So at my school, Rift Valley Academy, in Kenya, we have something throughout the school year called Multicultural Day, where it's pretty self-explanatory, but you come dressed as your country. So the face paint, like that day is specifically, it's, I think it's even like a curricular day, but it's like
Hmm.
specifically like a fun sports day. You break off into your countries and you play as teams, and so it's such a fun experience. And I remember, oh man, this is, hey Luis, you're bringing back memories now. Good to the miss, huh?
That's
Like,
good.
yeah, I know. Look at you, just sitting over there all happy. No, it's good, it's good. Um, I remember I would be conflicted at times because I had this little Canada hat I had, and then I'm like, but like
Yeah,
a lot of my friends would be like Kenyan, so I'm like, oh, obviously I'm going Kenyan. So I always went as two. I always went as Canadian and Kenyan. I usually
yeah,
would have a Kenya flag strapped to my back, and then face paint, maybe Canada, whatever. Like, so I was kind
yeah,
of. I have a picture. I'll try to send it to you, but I was kind of both, you know. Um,
yeah,
and as I got a little older, like junior year, senior year, I think I started to embrace the Kenyan side more. But I've always claimed myself as being a Maasai, because people look at me and say, "Oh, you're tall and skinny. You're probably a Maasai." So I'm like,
yeah,
whatever. So that was through high school, through secondary school. But it wasn't actually until 2015 in South Africa, in Cape Town, Pretoria. Sorry, we were doing a
yeah,
conference, and I remember I was kind of wrestling throughout this whole conference of just my Kenyan identity and just the roots that I have, because everywhere that we would travel as a family in Kenya, we'd go north, south, west, east.
yeah,
Different tribes would come out and say, "Oh, he belongs to us. He looks like this," and that just happened time and time again. So, 2015 at this conference, I was always remembering that, and I remember I just prayed and I said, "Lord, like who am I as a Kenyan?" And and I felt like He started to say, "You, Caleb, you're a Maasai. You're a Maasai." And at that moment, I was still kind of not too sure, and I can tell this other story later. But there is a moment of reconciliation that happened on the stage, and out of response, um, what I felt to do was to jump. And
hmm,
as you may know, for the Maasai people, that is one of their traits. That is one of their characteristics, and they jump. And so it was actually in that moment when, out of forgiving someone, for what he had done, I said, "Let me show you this act," and that was the act of jumping. And so it was actually in
yeah,
that moment, 2015 in August, um, when I really actually started to embrace the culture of being a Maasai
yeah,
who was born and raised in Kenya.
yeah. You didn't grow up around the Maasai people, hey?
No, no.
It's yeah.
So yeah.
So you've been visiting them the last couple of years.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
I went. So I've been living in Tanzania this past year, and when I visited previously, and I would go out to some of these villages, just here and there, back and forth, just to hang out with the Maasai people. Now I don't speak Maasai, um,
Hmm.
and I like to say, though, it's like the French of Africa. It's such a
Oh,
beautifully spoken language. It's so fast. It's
can
like,
you
huh?
can you say one phrase in Maasai?
Well, let me not say the
Is
phrase,
that
but
the
I can say a
language?
few words.
Is the language
Yeah,
Maasai?
Kimasai.
Oh,
Let
okay.
me say, Ashe, like Ashe Naling is like thank you, you know.
Okay.
Um, let's say, so that, yeah, it's beautiful, but ooh, Louis, you got me on the spot with that one. But I gotta Google Translate before. No, I'm just joking. But it's such a beautiful language. But I went to one of these villages, and I remember I arrived, and through translation, we're speaking. They're finding out who I am, and at first they were um, not mocking me, but they were just like, "Why don't you know your language? Like, yeah, you look like
Yeah.
us. But like, why aren't you like? why aren't you more, basically? Do better. And
Yeah.
and I remember just I had to break it down quickly, and I was just like, let me tell you why I don't know my language, and
Yeah.
then I just started. At 1 month old, I was abandoned, and I shared my story, and I wish you could have seen it. 5 seconds in, within translation, they just stopped, and it's like their jaws had touched the floor, and they're like, "Oh my
Wow.
gosh!" And then but it was an open door, and I went for it, and I shared with him, and then I also I went on to say, "But let me tell you, I represent you. When I'm in South Korea jumping, when I'm in Germany jumping, when I'm in the Caribbean, when I'm doing this and that, like I represent you. I
Yeah.
represent us as a people, and I make sure to do it honorably." And like the respect that you could have just seen, that was just like implored into me, and it
Yeah.
wasn't out of bragging rights, but it was just out of the truth and reality of what my life has been. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there are a couple things that they were shocked how I did in the Western culture, but I shared with them again. I was brought up by a Canadian family, and so we're not going to do Maasai traditions in Canada. And
Yeah.
it just it really was a beautiful moment. But that's been probably one of the most rewarding type of experiences I've been able to have these past couple of years. Just being able to go out to some of these villages and just be able to share my experiences as a Maasai outside of the Maasai culture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I do and would like to continue to grow and know more and understand more about my culture.
Yeah.
The Maasai people group are a beautiful people group. Well, like with any people group, right? There's good, bad, and ugly.
So you said that there was things that you did from a Western point of view that was a bit offensive to them.
Yeah.
Is there something you can share a little bit?
Well, one of the things, let's see, it's just I think, well, how I was raised, and so one of the things with the Maasai, what is very important and very big for a Maasai is
Hmm.
is the rite of passage from
Yeah.
a boy to a man, and
Yeah.
they have a huge ceremony for the men. Whether it's circumcision, and for the women, they have ceremonies and like them becoming like women and this and that. But it's a lot of around the men, of them becoming a warrior. And so when we tell them the Western way, that our things are done in the hospital or whatever, and it's done at a young age, they're like, "Wait, what?" And they said, "So you're not really a man?" I'm like, "Oh, trust me, homie, I'm a man. I'm a man. I'm a man." But they couldn't fathom the idea that we didn't go through the rituals of
Yeah.
all that they do, and it's a beautiful thing that they do. I mean, the ceremony is very intense, you know. But I just tell them, yeah, no, I was with the doctor, and I was like 6 months old, so it was very different for them to understand that.
Yeah.
Um, and at first, I kind of, when I was sharing that, you could kind of feel like there was this resentment that was building. But then again, I was just reminding them, and they saw that. I didn't have to actually remind them. I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
he was brought up differently. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah,
So, yeah, like you said, you've been spending most of this year in Africa, in mostly in Tanzania.
yep,
Um, yeah, so I was just curious to know how has the time impacted you? Because I know you weren't planning to stay that long, but
yeah.
everybody knows we were we were locked in. So, what have you learned this year from the Kenyan people and the Tanzanian people, or like we would say, the Tanzanian people?
Tanzania, I know. Let me change it up in here. Shoot, Tanzanian people. Well, let me say, for countries to be locked in for during COVID, during Corona, Tanzania was the best place. Um,
Yeah,
hands down, hands down. And I look at some of these countries that had it just, yeah, a lot more intense, like the rules. I'm like, no, I'm so glad I'm not there. They know who they are, but I'm just thankful to be in Tanzania. Tanzania, um, but I think one of the highlights for me was this past year has been a year of establishing and re-strengthening the relationships that I met 2 years prior. Um, One of my greatest highlights was working alongside, and when I say working, it really is just me coming to get to know them. This Muslim family, they own like a little cafe, a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and they took me in. Like Luis, that's the best way to say it. They took me in.
So,
They trusted me 100%, 110% with
oh,
their family, with their kids, and it just, I mean, you wouldn't like the way I would almost feel uncomfortable, but I didn't. But when I would walk in, I mean, the utmost favor they would give me, the love that they showed me, showered me with, and always, oh man. I mean, I first started, I would pay for the meal. I never, never, and they would be obviously offended if I tried to pay. But they would cook me up the nicest things, and and I just got so close with them. It was such a uh, it was just such a beautiful, beautiful time. And at the end of the time, like if I'd be at their house, it's like 11 at night. They would pray, and then I would pray. Like there was always an understanding. Like we love and we
yeah.
respect each other, and
Mm,
there were some really God moments there as well. I have to say, um,
yeah.
but also this past year has shown me, and one of my heart passions is reaching out to the youth and providing a safe place for them. And
Yeah.
I would say these 4 or 5 past months, it's been exactly that. Of just being able
Mm,
to create a safe place for young ones, and watching young sisters, young brothers find their identity and who they actually are has been one of the greatest
yeah.
things. And it's not been this organized religious thing at all. It's just been
Mm,
me having them over at my house, having food, having games. That's all it is.
yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Luis. I mean, I was very humbled when I left, hearing some of the things that were shared um, at some going away things for me. It was a very humbling, and I'm just like, this
Yeah.
is only something that the Lord can do. So this past year, um, the Lord grew me very close and intentional with a lot of people that are just live there, and so
Yeah.
whether I was in the bush, because I was, and I was I was carrying water from the river to their house like that, and I would engage with them. It was beautiful, or two in the city. I just always saw, and I don't say that to brag, but I just say there was such a contrast, but it was the same. I don't want to say same mission, but it was just the same act of love, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I loved it. The people
Yeah.
of Tanzania have taught me more than I thought I would learn. We often go to these places trying to, all right, let's show them this. But it's
Yeah.
and I believe I
It's
did
actually
though.
receiving
Yeah,
a lot more, hey?
yeah, receiving a lot more. I mean, I know I went there and I poured out everything I got, and I think out of the response was was what yeah, what I've seen
Yeah.
unfold before me.
Um, I mean, Africa is. I grew up. I was born on the African continent, and my heart always it's really warm towards this continent
Yeah.
and its people. And I know many people talk about the youth of Africa and the great potential there is
Mm.
for the African youth. And because you are from so different worlds, I don't know, just speak a little bit about what you see. What's the potential of the African youth, and what is their gift to the world? If you
Mm.
hear what I'm asking.
Yeah, and I do. It's very good, Luis. Wow. Africa has it all. Um,
Mm,
excuse me. I had a good talk with my dad a couple months back, and we were just speaking about the wealth inside of Africa. Unfortunately,
yeah,
as we know, it's that one of our always wrestling objectives is corruption that we face every nation here,
yeah,
and but just that reality of knowing, man, to think that Africa, it's basically like a Wakanda, like Africa could source the rest of the world with everything. We have all the resources, but we have bigger problems. Um, Now let me bring that to the youth. Um, the youth are have so much potential, have so much skill. I mean, living in South Africa with you guys, um, the youth in South Africa are probably the most talented youth I've seen in the world. You know, but
sure,
they have the realities of everyday life, whether it's drug violence, gang violence, um,
yeah,
the pregnancies, teenage pregnancies, school dropout. Like it's real, it's hard, and
Yeah.
unfortunately that is across this continent. Poverty has ravaged homes, has left so many people to doing things that they never would think they would do, which is
Yeah.
joining gangs, which is doing drugs. And so
Yeah.
that's what I've seen, and as much as it breaks my heart, it the distortion is Africa is a gifted continent, and the
Yeah.
youth of Africa are so talented. But I love one of our programs that we run, right? Purpose kills addiction. That
Hmm.
when there's a lack of purpose, then
Yeah.
we see what we've seen. Um,
Yeah.
but I believe that the African youth, one of the major things that is missing, also, and this is pretty close to my heart, is there's a lot of orphans here.
Yeah.
And that's also physically and inevitably in the spiritual sense as well. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people
Like
that,
fathers lacking, hey?
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
fatherlessness,
Yeah.
and you see it very clearly. You don't need to have a degree or to even be spiritual to see fatherlessness, but it
Yeah.
is a reality. And so I know for me, that's when I shared that thing about when I was in Namibia about the two worlds, being white and black kind of thing. It was also in that same vision, open vision, or whatever we would want to call it, that I
Mm.
saw the the intentionality that I am to have for being a father to the fatherless here. Um,
Yeah.
and I've seen that played out in my life here in Africa, in Tanzania, when I was in Kenya. I've seen it played out. I saw it when I lived in Liberia. I've seen it played out.
Yeah.
God has given me a passion for the young ones. As much as
Yeah.
they frustrate me, and I want to slap them. I want to slap them so many times. I'm like, oh, you're so stupid. Like, there's so many times I'm like, but then I'm like, no, okay. And it's not like I always give them like, okay, you didn't have a father, da da. Da. But it's like I just gotta go back to the root, like, okay, this is why you're like this because da da da. But
Yeah.
it is a real thing for me. To
Yeah.
address that issue, the fatherlessness.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you've been traveling to many parts of the world the last 4.5 years,
Mm.
and you've been part of multicultural teams. So yeah, I mean, if you've been with South Roots, which is my old team, and you've been with Island Breeze, which is my current team, and also your former team.
So basically, I'm following your.
um,
Uh huh.
it must be. But yeah, I'm curious, what is the things that you've learned about being part of a multicultural team and working together, different cultures working together?
Mm.
Um, yeah, share a bit about that.
That's very good. Yeah. First off, I think you're following me, so but it's okay.
Who follows who?
Whatever,
I
I know.
think.
Yeah, I know we're on this crazy journey together. No, I think one of the greatest things that you would see with our team, Island Breeze, um, and I just want to say what our leader Rudy would say is there is power in diversity, and
Yeah.
um, you would look at us on the stage, and you would see Koreans, you would see Polynesians who are, you know, mixed skin color, beautiful. Polynesians are very beautiful people. Um, you would see Africans, you would see whites, and whites in that would be Europeans. So there was always such a diversity, and
Hmm.
people would see us making cookies together. People would see us living life. Now, Island Breeze, our schedule, we would be sometimes on the road from 9 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months out of the year, and
Yeah.
so basically I say if you didn't like your friend, like you would either learn to love them or you learn to hate them. Like there is no because you're doing everything together. I mean, you're
Yeah.
sleeping in the same room, you're in the same car, the same plane. Like you're constantly with the same people. Um, but because celebration of diversity was displayed before us, we knew how to love each other, and
Yeah.
that came natural. And so always, Luis, every town, city, country, nation we would go to, people would say what drew us to you guys was just the way you guys love each other.
Yeah.
They would see that it wasn't this fake thing just on the stage, fake smiles. Like they actually saw you guys are intentional. You guys work together. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably been one of the greatest things I can take out of my time with Island Breeze. And there's a lot of good things I can take out of it. But
Yeah.
we celebrated each other. When I started to realize that I was a Maasai, it was the teams of Island Breeze and South Roots that got behind me, and they
Yeah.
embraced it and celebrated me like I've never been celebrated before.
Mm.
Um, it's my greatest breakthroughs, my spiritual breakthroughs, has been with Island Breeze, has been with South Roots. They've been there
Yeah.
to experience that with me. There was always just a deeper understanding, and we were always there for each other. And
Yeah.
um, in the really tough moments to the really good moments. And so I think
Mm.
obviously a lot of that overflows from Rudy and Aleppa,
Yeah.
and Shanette.
Yes.
They displayed such a culture, and it's been one of my
Yeah.
greatest joys to travel the world with them.
Yeah. I think another advantage of that is also being traveling to the world and also experiencing the beauty of the different nations we visit.
Mm,
And sometimes just reflect it back to them, because I think sometimes if you live so in your normal circumstances and your normal, you don't have that perspective of who you are and the gift that you are actually to the world.
mm,
Um, I mean, I'm just thinking of the people in South Korea and their graciousness
yeah.
and yeah, and coming to Africa and you visit Zimbabwe and you
Mhm.
experience the people there, and you go to Namibia. Uh, you are able to see it with different eyes than people living in that countries and see themselves. Eh?
It's so true, and lastly for is like coming back to Toronto and coming back to the 9 to 5 kind of lifestyle. You see, like what we did was so out there, like it is, oh my gosh, like it makes no sense to
Yeah.
people who are living, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's so like when you try to tell someone, oh yeah, I traveled the world, and like, so how much did you get paid? Like, you must be making lots of money. Oh no, you actually don't get paid at all. You're like, I'm sorry, what are you on? Like it's just ridiculous. And and I think it's another humbling, another conversation. But the Lord, I think, lets us live different lifestyles so that we can have a different respect for those, and
Mm.
have a different way to reach out in the future. And so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
I want to come back to just your adoption story.
mm,
And you mentioned earlier that there was a point that you had to forgive. And yeah, do you mind sharing a little bit about the challenges that you had to overcome being
mm,
adopted,
yeah.
and speak to that for maybe somebody who has been adopted or family that is considering adopting kids, or yeah,
That's good.
can you speak a little bit towards that?
I like to say, other than my salvation, adoption has been the greatest gift.
Mm,
And that's not the same statement that every adoptee can say.
yeah, I
Um,
understand that.
when we were in the Caribbean and I shared my story, one lady heard me and she asked me to come to her house and talk to her son. Her son, she adopted her son. His son was 16, and he was just having a rough time with life
Yeah.
and was throwing a lot of attitude at the mother. And I remember I went, he was playing PlayStation, and I walked in and I really didn't know what to say. And it
Yeah.
was one of those times I said, Lord, I really need you to give me the words, because I don't know what to say. Because people would ask me, how did you get over this? How did you? And I'll get to it, but the Lord has really like spared me from a lot of what seems like junk, or what seems just that different, that rage. I didn't have that, so I didn't know how to speak to the 16-year-old boy. But then it was a thought dropped into my mind, which I believe was the Lord, where basically it was, and I said to him, I said, homie, I said, um, your mom, your biological mom, for whatever reason, she left you, and that is terrible beyond words, and that's sad. But
Mm,
this lady here, who is now your adoptive mother, she has chosen you. And that's really when that moment when it got me, when it was like you were a choice, and she accepted. and
Yeah.
and it was, I mean, again, and he stopped playing and then he went back to playing, but I want to believe that it stuck with him, like he was actually
Yeah.
chosen. For me,
Yeah.
um I my mom and dad always shared that with me. Caleb, you were chosen. We chose you. We chose you. We chose you.
Yeah.
And um, it wasn't until my discipleship training school, 2013, I was sitting between my school leader and our other leader, and they asked us to ask, Holy Spirit, because, Holy Spirit can speak to us. They said, Holy Spirit, would you show us where we have hurt in our lives? Or
Yeah.
this or that. And I remember thinking, I've had a pretty good childhood. Like, I have nothing wrong with me. Luis, the way I
Yeah.
was wrong. And Holy Spirit's like, oh, you have unforgiveness towards your biological parents. As soon as he shed, the water dam, the dam broke. The eyes just, you know that ugly snot. Why way I'm crying? I'm giving it a name. The why way I'm crying. And it was all of that and then some. And I got so messed up, but I realized that I had just pushed everything down. I haven't forgiven my biological mommy and daddy for abandoning
Yeah.
me, for leaving me under a bush. For whatever their reasons, even if they were good, that's still trauma, and I
Yeah.
wasn't addressing that trauma. Fast forward to 2015, when I was talking to you earlier about jumping as a Maasai. What
Yeah.
had led up to that was a South African man. He came on stage. He called me out. I was part of the worship team, and so I was already on the stage. But he called me to the front of the stage, and he said, in front of everyone here, and there was a hall, maybe 300 plus people, and he said, "I want to publicly repent to you, Caleb, on behalf of all African men who have
Sure.
abandoned their children." And
Wow.
Luis, let me just tell you, I mean, enough said. Again,
Yeah.
I more than I just cried. There was something that was done that was so tangible.
Yeah.
What had started in 2013, the healing process, 2015, there was this, it was a huge, like the cycle had been completed, you know?
Yeah.
And he repented on behalf of the fathers, and it was very significant. It was very powerful, and I like to say it's like there was a bunch of healing type moments that was happening in that session,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like that moment was for me, and my response to forgive him was for me to jump. And I think up at that point I'd only really jumped like 2 or 3 times, not a
Yeah.
lie. And so that's why actually when I jump, there's such significance tied to it, is the time of the most powerful reconciliation that I've seen displayed before me. And and I had some of the fathers of our mission praying over me and blessing me. And so that
Mm.
time when I had to learn to forgive, um, it was then when I was able to say, I forgive you. And And I remember back in 2013, sorry, I'm going back and forth a bit, but I'm just remembering back in 2013, I said to the Lord, I said, when He had showed me that I had unforgiveness towards my biological parents, I said, God, I don't know
Yeah.
how to do this. I don't know what it looks like to forgive, but I'll just say the words and then
Yeah.
I'll try to act it out. And
Yeah.
I think so many of us, we think we have to have it all together in order to forgive, or we have to have all the pieces in order to forgive. But I realized at that moment I didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
I was such a mess. I was so hurt. But I knew how to say it with my mouth. Whether I meant it or not, that's another thing.
Yeah.
But I just said, okay, I forgive them. But then the Lord, I believe, was like, Caleb, if you are really intentional about this and you actually mean this, and we will forgive, we'll work to forgive together. And that's what I would want to say to adoptees. There's so much. We hear so much of kids who run away, or who yell and have such anger uh, matters with their parents. And honestly, one of the root causes of that is just because they have not dealt with the forgiveness in their own heart. They have so much
Yeah.
unforgiveness, so much hatred.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying I'm better than them, because I'm not, you know. But I realize, actually, I can't move forward with this unforgiveness. And that's what I would want to say
Yeah.
to anyone. And I'll end by saying this, Luis. If it wasn't for my faith in God,
Yeah.
I would not be here now. I would not be as developed as I am in this area of forgiveness. I couldn't be here if it wasn't for my faith
Yeah.
in God. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's really the love that is the thing that connects us, that help us overcome
Mm,
the real difficult challenges, working together with people from different cultures.
mm,
It's really a love that's not in human beings; it's from somewhere out there, from God Himself,
yeah.
that we can actually move into these things. Eh?
Mm.
Yeah, so I just want to say, Caleb, so thank you very much. Before I properly say goodbye, I just want to ask how, if people would like to connect with you, what is the best way to connect with you?
Um, yeah, they can connect to me. Connect through me. Connect to me. um, I'm not big on social media. The only social media I have is like Facebook. So Messenger, whoop whoop. Oh, and WhatsApp, and WhatsApp. And email. Oh, look at me, email.
Okay,
Okay, so I have three things, and um, I'm intentional. So
good.
as much as that sounds like a self brag, no, I will. If you reach out, I will get back to you. So yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so we'll put his contact details in the show notes for today's episode.
awesome.
Yeah. So, Caleb, I just want to affirm you for being such a great friend for me personally.
Mm,
Um, I
likewise.
think one thing that really stand out about you is that you're so good at recognizing gifts and strengths in people's lives, and you
Mm,
affirm it. And that has been a blessing to me so many times.
mm,
And then I know that your story is really powerful and has been has touched a lot of people's lives, especially those who has been adopted,
mm,
those who had to deal with forgiveness. I've seen the reaction on telling your story on different stages around the world. And
mm.
yeah, so I want to say thank you so much for being the first on this podcast. And thank you very much for coming.
I look forward to coming back. Do I get a call back?
Yes.
Oh snap!
Yes.
Hey, there it is. There it is. Bye, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, take care. God bless.